High school brings its own unique vocabulary for the teacher: credit hours, grade point averages, transcripts. Let's take a few moments to walk through the ins and outs of those concepts and give you some ideas for how you can approach them in a Charlotte Mason high school. Welcome to the Simply Charlotte Mason podcast. I'm Sonia Schaefer. Transcripts, grades, credit hours, those concepts can be challenging for a homeschool parent, and especially for a parent who uses the Charlotte Mason method, because the Charlotte Mason approach isn't designed around a grading system. It's designed around growing as a person and sharing what you have learned and staying with a concept until you've grasped it and can put it in your own words. So as a teacher, you haven't had to worry about grades all the way through elementary and middle school. Now, suddenly in high school, you're expected to deal with grades and credit hours, whatever those are, and a transcript. Well, the good news is that it's not as intimidating as it might sound. Yes, there might be some new terms to learn along the way, but let me see if I can break it down for you and help you walk through this new vocabulary with understanding. The terms that I've mentioned, transcripts, grades, and credit hours, are all centered around the courses that your students complete during the high school years. Now, we talked about that in a previous episode, about designing your high schooler's curriculum and choosing those courses. I'll leave a link to that episode. Today, let's focus on what you need to do in order to create an official record of the work that they did. Here's the quick summary. Credit hours are about the quantity of work that your high schoolers completed. Grades and grade points are about the quality of work that they did. And then a transcript is just a concise summary of that information. Now, let's break it down. All right, we'll start with credit hours. Credit hours are simply a way to show how much work your high school students have completed. Yes, for example, they did science in high school, but how much science and which courses of study? Or how much history and which time periods? Credit hours are all about how much, the quantity of work done. Now, you can calculate those credit hours based on the actual time your students spent interacting with the material, or you can calculate them based on the completion of a course of study with a high school level amount of work involved. Either method of calculating is fine. You can even mix and match. You might use one method for some subjects and the other method for other subjects, and that's fine. Now, if you're calculating based on the time involved, you'll be aiming for 120 to 180 hours. One full high school credit is awarded for every 120 to 180 hours spent on that course. You can average it to about 150 hours. So if your students spend about 150 hours of work on a particular course, you can award one credit for that course. Some of the courses your students work on will add up to 120 to 180 hours in just 1 year. Other courses might add up to only part of a credit during 1 year, and that's all right. You can accumulate credits over the 4 years of high school. For example, here at Simply Charlotte Mason, we spread American history over 2 years, early modern and modern times, and combine it with the world history that was happening during that same time period. So your students are not going to earn a full credit for American history in just one of those years. They will earn a half credit, but over the 2 years, they will earn that full credit of American history. With a Charlotte Mason education, many subjects are spread out over several years, and those small constant touches add up to full credits. So it's important to remember that credits can accumulate over the years. Another thing that's helpful to keep in mind is that you can bundle several shorter subjects together to create a full credit. For example, you could take the time spent on picture study, music study, hymn singing, handicrafts, and art instruction, and bundle them all together under the heading of Fine Arts. When you look at the total time that your students will spend on all of those subjects during a week, it adds up to about an hour. All right, take that 1 hour per week times 36 weeks in a school year. That gives you 36 hours of work that was done during that 1 year. Now, if your students continue to do those studies over all 4 years of high school, let's multiply it, 36 hours times the 4 years, that adds up to 144 hours of work under that heading of Fine Arts. That 144, that's in the range of 120 to 180, and it's very close to that 150 average. So you can award your students 1 credit hour in Fine Arts for those studies combined. You can also then calculate credits based on simply completing a set course of study, assuming that the course contains high school level work. If your students complete an algebra course or a biology course, for example, you don't have to track that time. You can just award the credit for completion of that course. Most curriculum publishers include information about credits with their high school courses. You can see the high school credits information for Simply Charlotte Mason's courses at simplycm.com/highschoolcredit, or you can use the link in the description. All right, if credit hours are all about the quantity of work that your students have done, grades are about the quality of that work. Yes, they may have spent 150 hours studying, but how well did they grasp what they studied? That's what grades tell. In a Charlotte Mason approach, this can be a somewhat uncomfortable shift away from those elementary and middle school years. The Charlotte Mason method is all about growth and knowledge for its own sake. We don't give grades. But once your students hit high school, grades become part of the requirement from outside sources. So as you navigate this potentially new territory, here's my advice. Try to keep the grades secondary. They are not the primary focus. The focus is on gaining personal knowledge in order to keep growing as a person. Charlotte's concern with grades was that they should not be used for motivation. When grades become the main motivation or reason for studying, then the focus shifts away from what can I learn today and to how much do I have to do to get by? And that's when we start to hear things like, is this going to be on the test? Oh, that question is a red flag that the goal is no longer learning for learning's sake. The goal has shifted and become doing only what's required in order to earn the reward, the grade. So, assign grades when necessary, and they are necessary in high school. But do all that you can to make sure the grades do not become your students' main focus and goal in their schoolwork. All right, how do you determine grades? Well, it's pretty easy to determine the students' grades with some courses, like math and science courses, for example. They often have set questions to answer, and you can quickly see whether the answers are correct or incorrect. So those types of courses are easy to score. But other subjects, such as literature or history, those are set up differently in a Charlotte Mason approach. In those cases, you can assign a grade based on how well you think the students have covered and grasped the material. Narrations are going to help you determine whether they understand the material, and discussions can help you assess whether they're engaged and doing their best. Based on that assessment, then, you can determine a letter grade. Here's an average high school grading breakdown. The scale, as you can see, is based on a total score of 100. So if you're checking your students' math, you can translate the score based on the numbers in that score column. If your student completed 20 math problems, for example, each problem would be worth 5 points in order to make that total of 100. So if they have an incorrect answer on one problem, they would earn 95 for that assignment. And you can see that a score of 95 would earn an A grade. If you are evaluating your students' work in reading and discussing their literature books, you can use the descriptions listed in the assessment column. Do their narrations and discussions demonstrate that they understand this book very well, or pretty well, or somewhat? You can see the corresponding grade to assign. Now, look at the far right column. You can see that each letter grade is assigned a certain number of points. A's are worth 4 points, B's are worth 3, C's are worth 2 points, and D's are 1 point. The points are a way to summarize and easily calculate the average of your students' grades for a whole year, or even over all 4 years of high school. It would be a bit cumbersome to say that Joey earned 3 A's and 2 B's and a C in his freshman year. There's no easy way to combine those letter grades to get an average. But if you use the grade points, you can say Joey's grade point average his freshman year was 3.3. Given that number, you can look at the chart and quickly see, oh, he has a B average over all of his courses. To calculate a grade point average, you add up the total of all the grade points that your student earned, and then divide that total by the number of scores you included. For example, here's how we got Joey's 3.3 freshman year average. Now you'll recall that Joey had 3 A's, 2 B's, and a C. All right, A's are worth 4 points. So 3 A's at 4 points each equals 12. And then 2 B's times your 3 points each equals 6. 1 C at 2 points equals 2. Now the total, 12 plus 6 plus 2, equals 20 points. All right, now let's see how many scores we included to get that total. We included 3 A's, 2 B's, and 1 C. That makes 6 scores that we included. So we just take that total points, 20, and divide it by the number of scores that we included, 6. 20 grade points divided by 6 scores equals 3.3 grade point average. You can see how grade points and grade point averages make it quick to just see at a glance the quality of work that your students did in their high school courses. Once you have a record of your high school students' quantity of work, that's the credit hours, and quality of work, that's the grades, you can create a transcript. A transcript is simply an organized, concise summary of that information, credit hours and grades. There are a couple of ways that you can format a transcript. One is to organize it by year. So you would list the courses that your students completed in grade 9, along with their corresponding credit hours and grade points for those courses, and then list the grade 10 and grade 11 and grade 12 in the same way. Most colleges prefer this year-by-year format. But you can also organize a transcript by subject. With this format, you would group, say, all of the history courses under a history heading. Then you would list each course's credit hours, grades, and grade points. And then, under a science heading, you would list all the science courses and all of that information, and so on. You can find templates online for both formats. I encourage you to keep track of the courses and grades as you go along, so you'll have that information when you need it in order to create the transcript when the time comes. Just remember, credit hours are about the quantity of work, grades are about the quality of work, and the transcript is a concise, official record of that information. Check the description for links to the episode on selecting courses for your high schooler and to see the high school credits for the Simply Charlotte Mason curriculum. Next time, we're going to shift gears and talk about how you can help your high school students get more involved in their own habit training. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.